My first standard is clarity. 90% of the people just fail in that standard. Huh? They never go to that next standard. Their entire life is led without clarity. It's all muddy. If they pass that first standard, then the second standard becomes even more interesting, that they need to have focus. There is a lot of distractions always coming. Why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? Something else is coming interesting. Another investor is coming here. He wants to put more money. Somebody else is making money somewhere else. Father-in-law wants me to do something else. I get more dowry if I do this. You know, I mean, I'm in Hyderabad, so I thought. So, but, you know, so that perspective is very, very important. To have focus. Let's say you have clarity, you have focus. Right? Then comes the third perspective, which is perseverance. Do you have it in you to not stop when the chips fall against you? And the chips will fall against you. Chips will fall against you. There will be a lot of times where you will wake up and you will say, boss, I don't want to wake up today. Can I just pass 2 more days without waking up? I'll give you an example. 2008. The whole world was, you know, getting rattled by the financial crisis. We had 40% of our revenue coming from one customer. It was in the healthcare space. This was, you know, a provider of data in the healthcare space. This customer understood that we were 40% of their revenue. They came to me and they basically said, you know, Dheeraj, we understand that you are 40% of, we are 40% of your revenue. We want to change the contract with you. What do you want? We want you to work exclusively with us in the pharma space, and you will never work with any other pharma company. So, but that is not good for us. But that's what our condition is, because the market is very, very bad. We will take this contract from you, and that may be very, very hard for you. That's the time where you're tested. And when you're tested, that's when the boys get separated from men. This is not an easy decision. We had to stand up, we had to think about it, we had to sit with our initial investors, I had to sit with my founding team, and then we went back and said, you know, we're not going to do it. You can take this business away, but we are going to get back at you, we are going to go to every pharma company. That year we doubled our revenues, despite losing 40% of our revenues. 2009 beginning, right after this, at the same time when this was happening actually, literally, we had an offer to get bought out by one of the largest companies in the world. All of you will know them. For about, you know, initial offer was 300, it went to about $400 million. That would have easily put about 75% of the company was owned by me. So, a lot of money in the bank balance. But at the same time, we knew that if we did that, then we would not have completed what we set out to do. We would not, you know, we might even destroy the dream that we set out to create. So it's difficult. Right after this 2008-2009 time frame to make that decision, one of the customers that we had, Zappos, you know, was bought out by a company called Amazon.com. The founder of Zappos, Tony Shea and Alfred Lin. Alfred was a good friend. He called me and said, Dheeraj, I think you're building something very, very interesting. I think you ought to meet a friend of mine, and I'm going to work for this guy. His name is Mike Moritz. He made the initial investment into Google. Come and see him. They came, they saw, they liked what we did. They said, you know, instead of taking this large amount of money, take a small amount of money from us and continue to build the company. Again, difficult decision, One was a negative decision that had to be something you scared. Other was a positive thing, but again something you're excited about. Maybe the money is good. You can retire. Again, the decision was the same. Do you stick to your focus? And do you persevere through the pain? Because you are defined by the pain that you are going to endure as an entrepreneur. So if you are here because big data is a fad, please don't be here. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your life. Be here because you have the clarity around why you are here. Be here because you are focused on that. Be here because you will persevere through the pain. And if you do that, there is a chance that something might work out, and there is a 99.99% chance that you are going to be very poor. Because entrepreneurship is about dealing with poverty. For most people. That's how it should be. And a few people will succeed and everybody will make a lot of noise about it. But that's okay. But it's still, the journey is worth it. Because that journey, even without the financial rewards, is very, very enriching. I would do this anytime just for the journey. I think that perspective is very, very important to have, and if you have that perspective, you are a winner. It doesn't matter what happens to you. So I'll go back to this concept of big data again. So what's happening is that the rules of the game are changing. I'll give you examples of how these rules of the games are changing. There's a company called Uber. Have you heard of Uber? Uber is changing the way a taxi industry worked before. Transportation. Uber is changing transportation. If you're in San Francisco, if you're in New York, if you want to book a cab, you'll most probably book Uber. In fact, it's become a verb. They say can be Uber. Right? So the point is, this thing called data is connecting taxi drivers real time with patrons real time, and they are able to understand, okay, should I book a taxi? If I am booking a taxi, who are the taxis around me? If I am, looking at those taxis, what are the chances that I'll get this taxi in the next 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 9 minutes? So the concept of taxi waiting time is being destroyed. And for people like me who will, in New York, who sometimes it's harder to get a taxi, Dipinder, it's even more harder. It becomes more interesting. Because hey, we have Uber, we get it, and it's solving a big problem. There's another company called Airbnb. What did Airbnb do? Simple idea. Simple idea, but the idea matters. Airbnb basically said that if you have an extra room in your house, and if you're not doing anything with that room, don't waste it. Somebody else will rent it from you for a day. And your single room apartment, one room in your 2-bedroom house, 3-bedroom house becomes a source of income for you. You will have somebody come and go. You should be okay with that. It's a very weird perspective to have somebody come and stay with you, but if you can deal with that, and slowly it's becoming socially acceptable, then we as a population are consuming less because less wastage is there in the world. Airbnb in 3 years has booked more rooms than Hilton. In 3 years. I mean, unbelievable. Disruption. Suddenly. So that's how this concept of decision sciences, big data, whatever you want to call it, is going to change the rules of the game. It's also about reducing costs that incur in a business. It's also about increasing revenues, but I think it's also about changing business models. We had a company which was a distributor of drugs. They were all the time looking for answering this question: which drug will increase its prices in the generic market, and if we know that this is going to increase its drug price, we're going to buy it ahead of time and make money. Not a bad question to ask, but not the great question to ask. Because the greater question to ask would have been, hey, we are the largest drug distributor in this country. We know the data of every drug. Shouldn't we be in the business of actually telling pharma companies how to increase their or decrease their prices? Now that's changing business model. Now the face of data is also changing. It's changing from aggregating data, collecting data from multiple places, to personalizing data, right? Me understanding that this is John, this is Jack, this is Jill, to contextizing data. What is John doing right now? So if you were to do a 3 by 3, right? Contextizing, personalizing, aggregating data. Decreasing costs, increasing revenue, changing business model. It becomes like cells. You have a 9-cell model. You take that 9-cell model and say, hey, what is your business playing in each of those cells? What is it doing in each of those cells? And then it becomes interesting. You have a framework to think about your business. Is my business going to decrease costs for somebody? Is my business going to increase revenues for somebody? Is my business going to change somebody's business model? Am I just aggregating data, personalizing data, contextizing data? It's a framework through which you can think about things. So we talked about the decision supply chain. We talked about the tremendous velocities at which data moves. We talked about the change, we talked about the rules changing. What we also need to think about the fact that data in the end of the day is nothing but observations. All progress has been made through the interaction between theory and observations. If you have lots of observations and no theory, there's no point. I'll give you an example. Newton's celestial mechanics. If you're a physics buff like me, and if you're a cosmos buff like me, you will be excited about this stuff. Not because you're going to make a lot of money from it, because it's just fun. Right? If everything you do is about how much money I can make, then you won't do very important things in life. You got to do things because you're passionate about it and you really have fun with it. So if you're a fan of these two things, then you'll learn about Newton's celestial mechanics, how it works, how he came up with these theories, and how it predicted the fact that all these planets would move in fantastic ellipses, and planned. He could predict Mars, Mercury, Earth, Venus. Most of the things was working beautifully. Newton was like, classic, right? But then came this guy called Uranus. And the people who were looking at things from an observation perspective, from telescopes, they found out that Uranus was this naughty guy who was not behaving as per what Newton wanted. And they were saying to the people who were proponents of Newton's laws, hey guys, Newton's worked for so long, but this guy called Uranus is like saying that you're not always right. So these guys basically looked at it and said that Newton's been right so long, we can't just disregard him. But two mathematicians, I think one was Laplace, but they looked at this and they said, you know what, in this whole universe, I think this disturbance might be coming from these areas of the universe. So let's go and figure out what those areas are and find out if we can see something. And what they saw was this interesting planet called Neptune. Neptune was not discovered through observations. Neptune was not discovered by theory also. Neptune was discovered by the interplay between theory and observations. When theory and observations start making love to each other, new concepts come out. New babies come out. But they have to make love to each other. Theory and observations. So all the things that we are doing in big data today is, hey, we have lots of data, a lot of observations, everything is there, more sensors, put it in there. But what's your theory? I think what is lacking in the world today is the concepts of theory of big data, understanding what frameworks we are going to use to maneuver all of this and come up and create the next generation of science that will change how all of this works. I think that's something that I get excited about tremendously, and there is tremendous value to be created. If you can understand the basic concept of it, think from first principles. What does first principle mean? First principle means it cannot be broken down anymore. It's the atomic level to which you're going. Have you gone to the asking the why about 7 times? Why 7? Because it's a nice number, 7 days in a week, right? Ask why at least 7, 8 times, 10 times if possible, till you cannot ask why anymore. You know who does that? My 10-year-old does that. If you ask him something, he says why? You ask him, he says why? He'll ask why 4 times. The child in you can ask, if that child in you is still alive. Many of you become adults, that's your problem. If that child in you is still alive, you can keep asking that why again and again and again, and it makes it interesting for you to have that perspective of coming to first principles. And if you can get to that first principles, you will build things that don't break that easily. You won't be doing things because somebody else is doing it. You won't be doing things because somebody else told you that you can make money. Some investor will invest in you. You will be doing things because it matters. You will be doing things that you have a cause. You will be doing things because for you, you believe that you can change the world with that. And if you can have that belief system, you will have a belief system. If you can have that belief system, which is very, very strong, then when you are faced with difficulty, you will know what to do, and you won't need to think about it. There is theory of cricket, right? A lot of cricket is that cricket, we all love cricket. This theory of cricket: over pitch ball, play front foot. Short pitch ball, go back foot. You know, if it is Brett Lee's Yorker, keep your bat down. If it is a bouncer, then duck. All of these theories are there. But when the ball comes, you have a split second to react. How do you do? How do you do that? You go and ask her, I think it was an over pitch ball. What do you think we should do? You can't do that. You have to react. That reaction time is how it is in entrepreneurship also. You are tested that way. You are tested in an elevator. You are tested in a car. You are tested in a plane. You are tested with a potential customer who is passing you by, who you want to react to, but you cannot react because you have not prepared yourself for that. So I think having that clarity is going to be very, very important. Work for that clarity a lot more. What else can I tell you about big data that might be interesting? All I can tell you is it's an interesting space. It's a little bit of a hype, and little bit is maybe the understatement. You got to be careful what you're doing. You got to understand from first principles that it makes sense. It should make business sense. It should add value. It should either decrease cost, increase revenue, change business models. It should do all of those kind of things. And then if you can use those fundamental first principles to then build businesses, hopefully you will have better clarity. If you have that better clarity, hopefully you will be having enough focus and perseverance to go through building a company. So that's my, I've just weaved in a little bit of my story of Mu Sigma and anecdotes from that and some of the things that you guys have asked for. Is there other questions that I could answer? Because I have like 6 minutes and 42, 41, 40 seconds. Yes, your name also, please.
My name is Siddharth. So I'm not doing anything in big data at the core. So right now I am working on relationships marketing platform. We don't do big data. We use that for big data.
Beautiful.
We are trying to do statistics right now to make out the difference in terms of something or another. So in your experience working with your clients, how often does data miscom rather than inform? Is it a 50-50, 70-30?
I think, like I said, right, data is just observations. You need your own theory in business also. So, observations without theory could be misinformed. The way I would